Super Mario Bros. Is one of the greatest games ever made, but I definitely don't have to tell you that now, do I? I mean, while I'm at it, I might as well tell you that the sky is blue, or the Pope is Catholic, or that Cats 2019 is the worst film ever made. Nintendo had already been pretty successful, but this game pretty much gave them a monopoly over the console market during the third generation. Pretty much everyone who ever had an NES owned this game, and it got re-released and remade a bunch of times after that. One of those consoles was the Wii, and that's how I played it for the first time when I was 5 years old. I've been playing it for almost my entire life. I love it. It's one of my favorite games ever. It's basically perfect, except for one little thing. Why can't you go left? It's such a weird problem for a game to have. For no reason that I can even remotely understand, everything you walk past gets sucked into the void and disappears from this plane of reality. If I had to guess why it does that, it's because this game actually runs on the Excitebike engine. Or at least a modified version of it anyway. But that's a racing game. There's absolutely no reason you would want to go backwards in that. In this game, there are a ton of reasons why you might want to go backwards, but too bad. That stuff you passed, that's all in the void of nothing now. You either have to die or reset the game. It's not that annoying most of the time, but there's one really egregious part in World 1-1 where it really stands out. You know that hidden 1-up? Well, if you hit the block it's in, it'll always go to the right. And if you're going through the rest of the level after that, that works out perfectly fine. But if you wanted to go into the pipe to the left for more coins, well, I've got some bad news for you. And if you go into the pipe beforehand, then when you come out, you're past the 1-up. This is admittedly a pretty small problem, but it's a problem nonetheless. Now I know that the real reason it does it is so that it can despawn everything to the left to make the game run better. I mean, I guess that makes sense, but why not just make the despawning go both ways and also make it reversible? I mean, I always thought that nothing was loaded in except what you're seeing. Is the entire level loaded in when you first start? Because if it is all loaded in, then the game works perfectly fine with it all there. And if it isn't, then that proves that you can just generate new level. So why not just make the new level generate both ways then? Admittedly, I don't understand anything about NES hardware and its limitations, but I do know that pretty much every other NES game I've played doesn't have this problem. You can go left and right in Kung Fu, and that came out a year before this. Sure, it's a lot slower, but it still works. There are other faster NES games that came out after this where that isn't a problem. I mean, realistically, it's probably just because they could do more with the new hardware. Either that or they just got better with time, I don't know. Anyway, now that that's over, I'm gonna talk about how much I love this game for a while. The best aspect of the entire game is easily the control you have over Mario. In pretty much every other platform game made before this one, there's a certain stiffness to the way you move. Those of you who have been watching me for a while now have probably noticed how often I complain about how awkward the controls are in other NES games I've reviewed. Well, that's because Super Mario Bros. Spoiled me. This game's movement is so fluid and effortless that it honestly makes almost every other NES game feel like garbage to play by comparison. This game lets you move in midair, and you can move really well in midair. Every tiny little tap of the D-pad you make moves you just the right amount. It's crazy how accurate it is. Also, your jump height depends on how long you hold the jump button, which sounds really awkward on paper, but it somehow works perfectly here. In any other NES game, the insane jumps you have to pull off in the last few stages would be impossible. But here, because of how precise you can move, it feels like a really good test of your abilities. I also love the way you have to slow down gradually after you stop running. It adds a really natural sense of momentum. The level of control is absolutely necessary because the enemies are all pretty small and require precision to hit. If this game controlled exactly like the original Mario Bros., then a Goomba would be about 20 times more dangerous. There are only 3 kinds of power-ups: the Super Mushroom, the Fire Flower, and the Starman. They all work exactly like they do in the other Mario games. Super Mushroom makes you big, Fire Flower gives you fire, Starman makes you invincible. The only interesting thing about these 3 is that the Fire Flower doesn't let you take another hit in this one. I actually don't mind that, considering that this game is pretty easy compared to its sequels. Especially 3. 3 is just insane. This was actually the first NES game I ever beat, which I'm sure isn't that surprising. Despite how long I've been playing this game though, I'd never read the manual until I made this review, and it has some interesting stuff in it. Apparently super mushrooms used to be called magic mushrooms. I can't imagine why they would have changed that. Also, it calls red Koopa Troopas chickens. What the heck, Manual? Do you think that they're cowards just because they don't walk off cliffs aimlessly? That's mean. Also, bloopers apparently used to be called bloobers. Okay. Also, times 3, lava bubbles used to be called Podoboos. And according to the Mario Wiki, that's still their official name? Huh. Anyway, the game itself is pretty straightforward. All you have to do is go left to right through 8 worlds that have 4 levels each, meaning that there are 32 levels in this game, but thanks to warp zones you only have to play 8. I'm sure that everyone and their grandmother knows about the warp zone in World 1 too, and also probably know about Minus World, which I've actually never been to. I would imagine that fewer people are aware of the hidden warp zone in 4.2. And that's definitely on purpose. I mean, they even put another warp zone to World 5 in the place where it is in 1.2. This warp zone actually takes you above ground, which is pretty cool. And once you're there, you get warp zones to 6, 7, and 8. I really like the warp zone system because it doesn't feel like cheating. I mean, even if you skip as many levels as possible, you still have to go through all of World 8, which is the hardest one. It's nowhere near as bad as the Lost levels, though. I really hate the Lost levels, and I have no plans to review it. Ever. The enemy design across the board is absolutely fantastic. I always seem to forget just how many classic Mario enemies came from this game and not 2 or 3. I mean, everyone remembers that this game created Goombas and Koopa Troopas and Piranha Plants, but it was also the first appearance of Paratroopas, Lockatoo, Buzzy Beetles, Bullet Bills, Cheep Cheeps, Bloopers, and my arch nemesis, the Hammer Brothers. Hammer Brothers are the absolute worst, but at the same time I kind of love them. The hammers they throw have a predictable arch, but they still get you almost every single time. When I was little, I actually used to run the clock out waiting for a good time to run past them. The absolute worst ones though are the ones that are just on flat ground. They had the audacity to put 4 of them in a row at the end of 8-3. And sure, they're not that bad if you have a fire flower, but I've never had a fire flower in 8-3. World 8 is really conservative with its power-ups. In my most recent playthrough, I got a game over on this Hammer Brother right before Bowser in 8-4. And then when I got back here, he killed me 2 more times. And what's even funnier is I got through Bowser on my first try. Maybe this guy is the real final boss. Speaking of Bowser, he throws hammers too. I don't know why he stopped doing that, it was a pretty effective strategy. Yeah, all of the Bowser fights in this game are pretty disappointing. You just jump him or run under him. Or if you're Super or Fire Mario, you can just tank a hit and run through him. So after you kill Bowser, you get to rescue Peach. I'm sorry, Toadstool. I mean, I guess it's more fitting for the Mushroom Kingdom, but still, it's really gross sounding. And after that, you get to play the entire game again. Your second time through, all of the enemies are faster, and also all the Goombas are replaced by Buzzy Beetles, making the Fire Flower almost worthless. It's really cool, but it's also really trippy the first time you play it. The only other thing that I feel is worth noting is that you can't pick up Koopa Troopa or Buzzy Beetle shells in this game. Other than that, it plays just like all of the other Marios, which is kind of hilarious. And thus concludes my thoughts. For a while I considered putting this one at the very top, but I just can't. Kirby's Adventure just objectively blows it out of the water. However, it is very easily the best black box game and the best NES launch title. There's a bunch of other stuff I want to say about this game, so I'm planning on making a second video later down the line. I haven't made a ranking video yet, so I might make a ranking of every level in this game, who knows. Anyway, 9 out of 10, thank you for watching, have a good day, like and subscribe, bye!